Did I overhype this book in my head too much, and that made the fall that was its disappointment so much more severe? Or was the production of this book rushed, as we've kind of started to see a little bit more in the publishing editing space? Hi guys, my name's Emily, and today we're going to be reviewing the highly anticipated, incredibly popular, internet sweetheart and favorite sequel to Powerless by Lauren Roberts. Today we'll be chatting about Reckless, the book that recently came out early July this year. Like my past reviews, we're going to keep this first part spoiler free, and then we're going to go into the spoilers where I'm going to talk about the characters, their character development. We're going to talk about the plot. I'm going to talk about notable quotes that I want to bring up about the book, whether good or bad. And then we'll be talking about the book cover, and lastly, final thoughts. So without further ado, let's get into it. So to keep this spoiler free, also I have all my notes on here. There was a lot going on, but also a lot not going on, so I had to put all my thoughts down. In Reckless, coming from Powerless, we ended Powerless with everyone finding out Pei is an ordinary, she has no powers. It ends with Pei unaliving Kit and Kai's father, the king. The resistance showcases themselves at the final trial in the bull, and it ends specifically with Peyton on the run and Kit, the new king, giving his first order to the enforcer, his brother Kai, to hunt down Pei. And that's exactly where the book picks up from. We're gonna keep it spoiler free. I got it. When I say that, it's more for myself, not for you guys. But it picks up right from there. The pacing for the first 10, 11 chapters were decent. I will note I didn't read the chapters that were provided beforehand, because I just knew if I read them, I'd want the entire book, so I held off on that. But the pacing was good at the start, and then it dramatically slowed down, and then it sped up a lot in the end. So it was a little bit tough to follow. I remember with Powerless, I was cruising through all of it, and Reckless I was struggling to get through. From a character standpoint, they felt a little bit different to me. They didn't feel like themselves. Obviously, they've gone through a lot of trauma since Powerless, but I felt like the relationships and what was there from the foundational standpoint of their characters just was not hitting like it did in Powerless. The plot, honestly, from a spoiler-free standpoint, we're not going to say anything, but not much happened. Not much happened, and that's going to be one of my biggest critiques as we go more into spoilers. It was just not, I found it incredibly disappointing. I don't know if comparatively Powerless just had a lot more to offer. I didn't realize there's a little bit of a controversy going on right now. I didn't realize that she'd mentioned that it was kind of inspired by Red Queen and Hunger Games, because now looking back at Powerless, I'm like, oh, this feels very directly like that. And then there are some potential comments for Reckless about what scenes were directly taken maybe from some movies and books, but we're going to talk a little bit more about that. Overall though, from a spoiler-free standpoint, I thought it was slow. I thought it lacked a lot of depth from a character standpoint. I thought the plot was non-existent, and it was overall just really disappointing. I'm probably still going to read the third one though. Let's get into spoilers. If you don't want to be spoiled, make sure to hit that save later, watch later button. Or if you don't care about being spoiled and you're probably not going to read this, or you just want to hear me complain about specifics about this book, stick around. Let's get right into the characters. Okay, so like I said in the spoiler-free section, the characters just didn't feel the same as Powerless. Just starting off with Pei, she felt a little bit different to me. Obviously, she's gone through a lot of trauma because Adina was taken out during the trials, so now she has literally no family left, so understandably so, she would not be the same. But there were times where She just didn't feel like herself. She didn't have that resilience to her. And when it came to Kai especially, I feel like she just gave in despite what she found out about him taking out her father. So I don't know. I'm not sure how to describe it. She just didn't feel the same and like the Peyton I liked in the Powerless. Kai was wishy-washy with me. I've seen a lot of polarizing reviews about him. I didn't like him. He would go like full enforcer mode and be like, no, my emotions don't mean anything. And then he'd be like, oh my gosh, let me suck Peyton's face. There was a lot of whiplash and I didn't care for him. He lacked any type of backbone. Yeah. Kit. I like Kit a lot for Powerless, so I'm a little bit biased. And he did not have the villain arc people are talking about. People are like, oh, Kit is in his villain era. What did he do besides brood in his office, throw food out the window, and write angry love letters to Peyton? / do a lot of journaling. Oh, and then demand a arranged marriage. That's literally all he contributed. I was hoping he'd actually like do some things, and maybe it's just, and he is grieving. His father died. But like, I feel like, I'm gonna talk about this more in the plot, not much happened. And from his standpoint, it just seemed like he was grieving the entire time. That's good to talk about, but I don't know if that's all we needed from him. I love Lenny. I love the Resistance Squad. I was so excited when they showed up and saved Peyton. That was my like, yes, most exciting moment, honestly. But speaking of the Resistance Squad, Callum is working with Kit. Wasn't Callum like the leader of the Resistance? I'm very confused. Also, Callum's a mind reader, right? So he can read all of Kit's memories? I'm confused. I would have thought he would definitely be in jail based off of how Kit reacted to everything going on with the Resistance and everything. Raphael was fine. He was the leader of the like fighting ring. But then he went and turned around and captured Peyton and Kai. But you know what? You can't trust a fighting ring leader. When Pei felt betrayed, I'm like, do you know him? He's just trying to make money. Everyone's trying to make money. It was fun that Abigail showed back up. She was the girl that, or one of the children that Kai saved from Powerless. And honestly, I don't remember any of the new characters because it was so Kai and Pei heavy. And that's all I remember. So yeah, let's get into the plot. The plot felt like there was so much yet so little that happened. It felt like that we were just trying to hit all these different tropes and things that Lauren wanted to include in this book and to focus so much on the romance that nothing actually happened to extend the story and the plot of what's going on. The build up to Kai and Peyton running into each other was fun. The like 10 to 11 chapter build up, that made sense. The pacing felt good. The like hunting each other down. He didn't just find her after 3 days, even though he kind of technically did because he went to her house and she was still there. But the pacing felt appropriate. That was fine. And then once they did meet up, I felt like I was reading the same exact story over and over again. They would discuss their past traumas. She would talk, he found out he unalived her dad. She found out that he didn't know about how the healers had been brainwashing everyone, that the ordinary people are actually fine and they're not diseased. And then they would go back and forth about how they're like, oh, we can never work out. But then I'd be like, oh, let's be in love and pretend. I hate the word pretend after this book. It just is make-believe for delusional. It's an alternative word, really, for what was actually going on. But, like, not much happened. It was the same exact thing over and over and over again, where they'd be talking about how they can't indulge in these feelings, and then they'd be like, oh, let's just pretend that there are no consequences to our actions, and then they'd hook up. What? I really liked Kit's POV in throughout all of this. I'm glad he got some screen time. I am confused still about the Callum detail. Like, he's just letting this guy walk around. I would have definitely thought he'd be a prisoner. My notes literally say, also, what did Kit do besides brood, throw his food out the window, and write angry love letters to pay? Besides being an arranged marriage, I don't know. I don't know. Paying the fighting rings was really exciting. I feel like from a long-term standpoint, she should have just dyed her hair. She was doing, I don't know how accessible hair dye is, if it even exists in this world, but having silver hair really sticks out. And she thought she could survive in all these like close cities that Kit definitely had her name on a wanted sign for. She should have done probably one of the main things to hide her identity or just go bald. She was not helping herself out. It was very easy for her to be discovered. Let's talk about the first kiss. It was so anticlimactic. When it happened, I was like, oh, we're already here. It's their first like meeting between just themselves. And they're obviously like very angry at each other, and it's supposed to be like, oh, just letting everything out and catching up on old time that happened like 4 days prior. I was not affected. I wasn't emotional about it. I was like, I'm unimpressed. I would have liked there to be more build up for the first kiss. I feel like it just kind of happened. And maybe the whole book with Powerless was supposed to be the build up, but I don't know. I didn't enjoy it. The love confession / no regrets confession in the sewers was potentially the most emotion I felt during this entire book. And then I saw someone point out how this is very similar to Tangled's scene where they're stuck in the cave and they're having their like, oh my gosh, death is flashing in front of our eyes, what should we do? But also there's gotta be other stories that have done this, so I don't know if I'd call that a plagiarism there. Something I'd like to note with the plot discussion, I don't know if it's like supposed to be reminding the readers of the history of Ilya, but Peyton's weird history lesson where she had to like explain her point of view of the history and what she was taught with Kai was like a weird refresher, and it didn't really fit the flow. And she even like said this is like ridiculous, but it just felt like a forced recollection of how we got here. And then also Kai didn't even accept her side very well, so because he was brainwashed. And shouldn't he like think a little bit more constructively and critically when he knows how terrible his father was? Peyton being adopted was a plot twist I did not see coming when we found out like the mixes and the individuals that don't have the full strength of powers. And I guess that makes sense, and honestly it felt like very much the whole blood purity thing like in Harry Potter where only the elites can survive. And honestly I was kind of hoping that she'd have some cool parents, because at first, and her father is, what is his name? One of the original resistance leaders? I don't know. But you know what I'm saying? I thought like her mom was going to be someone like crazy or something, but maybe that's the point of the book, is you don't have to have a crazy background or crazy family history to be exceptional. I don't know if I'd say that about Pei right now. Okay, more notes. Just the progression of the plot didn't really give anything. It was just Kai and Pei communicating, arguing, and then going back and forth about their feelings. I don't know. Let's talk about the second kiss. This is the near-death one in the sewers. I kind of wish this one was the first kiss. Like the build-up of them nearly dying and putting everything out there. I feel like this would make more sense as the first kiss where they're professing their feelings and how they don't regret their regrets about how the outcome came about. I don't know. There was much more drama and tension there. The sewers were gross. I feel like that would have made it more sense for the first kiss. The third kiss was juicy, I guess. This is their whole pretend. It's a continuation of their pretend little make-believe house scenario going on. And it's like, yeah, let's just ignore the consequences of our actions, which was just a common theme when they pretended to be lovers, when they're being chased by Raphael and his men, and then the gentleman's club. I feel like this felt more like a romance than a fantasy book, because it felt like we were just trying to throw in a lot of like, oh, little tropes, like pretend things, which was kind of exciting to have those, but like I don't think it really added anything to the plot. And it just overall lacked the angst and pining that Powerless held. Let's talk about the box that Kit was continuously carrying around. My morbid self of like initially thought it had some type of like curse or witchcraft or magic in it that he could utilize and like do a like public execution or something to like set the tone of how he's going to be king and how he's still powerful and he's not mad. But then as time went by, I was like, oh, that's a ring. And I thought he was going to marry someone else and do like a power move, maybe like a really powerful elite. I don't know. But then when it just came to him demanding to marry Pei, this is not his villain era. I think he's just off his rocker. Like, he knows his brother loves her. He's weirdly low-key obsessed with her, which, like, you know what? He had feelings for her. That's fine. But then he, like, also hates her because she unalived his dad. I think he's gone loco crazy. I, like, can't see this plan going well for him in any way, for anyone involved. And what was the plan at the end? Kai was like, I love you, but we'll never be together. And then he's like, but I can get you out of here, but let me bring you to the hardest place probably to escape from, the kingdom with the king, like the main castle little setup. And then he's like, Pokemon shook face when the plan does not work and Pei is now stuck there. Like, he was all like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna go against orders. He doesn't actually develop a backbone. And I'm gonna bring you right into the viper's nest. What were you thinking, Kai? I did not like him this book. I was incredibly unimpressed. Honestly, I don't even know if I really liked any of the characters that much besides Lenny. Lenny was the OG. Lenny was an MVP. Overall, my biggest issues with the plot was Powerless had so much going on. There was like the backstory of Pei and Adina in the slums. There was the development of Pei stealing and her taking out an elite that led to her being in the trials. There was the ball, there was the interviews, there was trials, ball trials. Very much like, after thinking about this, I'm like, wow, that feels very much like the Hunger Games. Oh, and then there was also the resistance buildup, the sneaking around, the finding out about like the plan, Pei working on utilizing her connections with Kit and Kai for the resistance, and then Powerless ending with the final battle and the betrayal. So much happened in Powerless. And Reckless had a very poor manhunt and a lot of awkward angst and flirting. And a plot twist that I feel like is just low-key dumb. Kit, be more evil. I'm a little bored by what you're doing. I thought you were going to be in your villain era. People are really hyping that up and I'm questioning it. The last thing I'll note about the plot is the haircut scene with hair holding memories. That made sense. I still think she should have gone bald or dyed her hair somehow, because that's her biggest giveaway if she really wanted to survive. Just me. Let's get into specific quotes I want to mention. First one is Kai and Pei arguing about how they both unalived each other's fathers. Pei goes, you kill the father. I practically growl, stepping closer to see the storm brewing in his very eyes. I kill the monster. And she goes, have you forgotten everything he did to you, everything he made you do, not to mention what he did to this kingdom? And he goes, enough, that's enough. And she goes, what, you can't handle hearing the truth? He says, I have said enough, we're leaving. And I agreed with Pei here, like, Kai, you are, I think he's 19, 20 at this point. Frontal cortex isn't fully developed, but like, you know how terribly your father treated you, and that's one of his sons. Can we think a little bit more critically? And we're not justifying glorifying murder, people. It's just, he was not a good person. And he literally made a, like, 13-year-old unalive man pay his dad. I don't get it. Okay, I just want to mention this quote. It's Kai and Pei's again. Where Pei goes, "You're afraid of me." And he goes, "I'd be a fool not to fear something so fierce. And are you not a fool that is?" He stands in holding my gaze until he's the one looking down at me, not anymore. I'm feeling very conflicted with this new marketing tactic where we're sharing quotes ahead of time from books that are coming out, and I feel like I don't enjoy it because I feel like then it doesn't make that moment in the book hold as much value because you've already experienced it. I think I just don't like the spoilers. I'm like, it's very much giving like trying to go viral on Book Talk for one audio energy, you know? I'm very confused. Okay, just this entire interaction, I'm gonna talk about it. This is Kit's perspective. I blink at what I know is trapped inside the velvet case. My heart starters beneath my ribs, my mouth following as it attempts to form his name in protest. Callum, it's the best way he cuts in, combing fingers through the blonde hair atop his head. I know it's not exactly the most appealing idea. Not exactly, I scoff, laughing at the insanity of it all. Do you even understand what you're asking me to do? His sigh is heavy, as though he too wears the weight of the kingdom on his shoulders, and in a way he does. You're the king. The life you live is no longer yours. This is a sacrifice that must be made for the good of the kingdom. This is how you help the people you still haven't confronted. I will. I just emotion traps the words in my throat, choking them until I'm finally able to spit the syllables out. I'm just hurt. I'm not the prince they knew. No, you're not, Callum says softly, because now you are their king, which means you sacrifice who you were for who you need to be. I'm confused. Isn't Callum the resistance leader? It sounds like he has like a really good relationship with Kit. He's the mind reader, right? Why does the weight of the kingdom weigh on his shoulders too? I don't understand what's happening. My brain hurts right now. I'm recovering from a red eye. So thinking about what that even means sounds like way too much work. So we will be moving on. This is just reminding me, I don't need to read the quote, but when Kai like locked him and Pei up together eventually after like the like back and forth and the like heartfelt feeling conversations, and she felt betrayed, and then she's like, oh my gosh, he was getting close to me again just to use me. I just like was like, yeah, because he has no backbone, Pei. I was just, when he did that, I'm like, I'm not even surprised. I'm not. If I see the word pretend one more time, I'm gonna have an aneurysm. Take a shot every time they say pretend. Don't though, you won't be well. Oh, the development of Ava, Kit and Kai's sister, was very interesting. This was someone who was like, she passed away when she was really young, she was really weak, and the king was so ashamed of her, and every year Kai and Kit used to like go and celebrate her at that one tree in the garden somewhere, but then Kit didn't this year, and this is why Kai knows how to braid, because it was one of the main ways he would bond with her. And I was just hoping we would maybe get a little bit, I don't know if this is supposed to make him like more of a dynamic character, but I don't know. I didn't find myself caring as much about that. Like, I cared a little bit, but I feel like we were just like throwing things into the plot to try to make characters seem more in depth, but it just was not landing. Oh, and then just the ending with Kit saying, "You are to be my bride." I don't know if this had the effect that it was supposed to. I think a lot of people were like, oh my gosh, shocked. I'm just confused and annoyed because I'm not thinking that Kit is trying to get all the elites and ordinaries together. I don't genuinely believe he's there mentally, but it's confusing with Callum being there. Yo no entiendo. ¿Qué pasó? I don't know what's going on. Let's not talk about it more. We need to move on. The book cover is cute. It's very reminiscent of the first one, Powerless's, but it's cute. I like it. Overall thoughts, the writing just felt so like dramatic and floofy. Like there were times where I'm like, we don't need to be doing this much. There were a bit of grammatical and spelling errors, an issue with editing. Was this book rushed? This is something I feel like is happening more in the book publishing, editing industry. I would rather wait for a book a little bit longer and have it be more washed out, well developed, no spelling errors, no grammatical errors, a little bit more interesting than have books rushed. If your book is actually, like, when there's hype around a book, people are gonna wait. They are going to wait for a book because it'll be worth it. And I felt like this book was rushed and I did not enjoy it. I'm probably still gonna read the third one and then we'll talk about it again then. But thanks for listening today, guys. I'm so disappointed. There have been some highly anticipated reads this year that have not been hitting like anticipated reads typically do. It's really disappointing and sad. Comment below your thoughts. I want to talk about this book with other people and what your thoughts were. Did you like it? Did you dislike it? What didn't you like? What did you like? Are you still gonna read the third one? What are your thoughts on if this book was published? Let me know, comment below. Also be sure to like this video, it helps me a lot. And if you wanna continue talking about books, hang out, here for a good time, be sure to subscribe and make sure to turn on those bell icons so you don't miss any videos from yours truly. Otherwise, thanks for listening today, guys. This was a time. I made sure to get this video recorded despite coming off of a red eye because I'm like, we need to talk about this and then I think we need to move on. Oh, it was rough, but that's okay. All right, thanks for listening. We'll catch you next week.